One day you may wake up and realize you've wasted half of your life. Carl Jung. Psychotropic drugs have become one of the most common treatments for anxiety disorders and depression, but these medications are not very effective at actually healing people. Often, they simply become crutches that support psychological struggles throughout life. Fortunately, there are alternative ways to face anxiety and depression. In this video, we explore the wisdom of Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychiatrists in history, to offer drug-free insights on how to overcome these psychological challenges. The elite still cling tightly to the idea that anxiety disorders originate from brain dysfunction. Unfortunately, many regular doctors still swear by this gospel, to the detriment of their patients, of whom our era produces in large numbers. Almost all of these patients have been convinced by medical doctrine that their illness is physical in nature. Carl Jung, however, believed that most cases of anxiety and depression were not due to a broken brain, but to a poorly structured lifestyle. According to Jung, the first step in treatment was not a prescription, but a dose of psychological introspection, understanding what to expect from life and what changes are truly necessary. On this point, Jung noted that many people believe life should be easy, with little suffering or difficulty. But he was clear and honest with his patients, telling them that life is not easy, and that comfort and peace are not our natural state. As Jung wrote, it is highly unlikely that there exists a therapy capable of eliminating all difficulties. Man needs difficulties. They are necessary for health. The only issue is when there are too many, accepting that difficulties are inevitable, and that nothing truly valuable comes easily, places us on solid ground and makes change possible. When we accept that life is difficult, we also realize that only by strengthening our character do we have any chance of living well. On the other hand, if we continue to delude ourselves into thinking life should be easy, we will lack the motivation to overcome our weaknesses, falsely expecting that things will simply get better over time. Life is a battlefield. It always has been, and it always will be. If it were not so, existence itself would cease. Another crucial insight Jung emphasized to his patients was that problems exist in the present, and digging into the past will not solve today's difficulties. Many people believe they can only move forward after discovering why they are the way they are. But Jung challenged this notion. He argued that excessive fixation on the past was simply a form of evasion, a way to avoid the hard task of facing what must be done now. People should understand that not only neurotics, but everyone, has a natural tendency to avoid looking inward for the causes of their suffering, preferring instead to push them as far as possible into space and time. Otherwise, they would have to change. Compared to this uncomfortable risk, it's far more convenient to blame someone else, or, if the blame is undeniably their own, to at least admit it emerged somehow during early childhood. With this dose of introspection, Jung moved to the first concrete step of his therapeutic method, helping patients confront what he called the shadow. As he wrote, the first requirement for a complete psychological method is that consciousness must confront its own shadow. The shadow, in Jung's view, refers to the aspects of our character we deny and repress into the unconscious due to shame, insecurity, or social censorship. In other words, it is the side of our personality we want to hide from others and from ourselves. It cannot be denied that man is generally less good than he imagines or wishes to be. Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the darker and denser it becomes. Jung believed that confronting the shadow was crucial for the process of self-transformation for several reasons. First, we do ourselves no favor by denying the lower aspects of our personality. We simply lose control over how and when those traits emerge. If, on the other hand, we acknowledge a character weakness, we can learn to control its expression and thus minimize the damage it might cause. Anything that remains in awareness can be corrected. What lies outside consciousness is beyond our control and tends to grow in a chaotic and destructive way. Fortunately, nature ensures that unconscious contents will eventually erupt into consciousness, creating the necessary state of confusion. The shadow is not made up only of weaknesses. On the contrary, some elements it contains are vital forces we suppressed during youth because our peers, family members, or society taught us they were negative. For example, some people repress their ability to express anger or stand up for themselves. Another benefit of becoming aware of the shadow is gaining access to traits that actually enhance life. As Jung wrote, the shadow is only slightly inferior, primitive, awkward, not wholly evil. It even contains qualities that would, in some ways, enliven and beautify human existence. But convention forbids them. One way to become aware of the shadow is to observe the weaknesses, flaws, and insecurities of those close to us. Not only do we often repress similar traits, but we also tend to project aspects of our own shadow onto others. Therefore, by paying attention to the character traits in friends and family that disturb us, we can glimpse our own shadow. Besides observing others, another way to bring the shadow to light is to reflect on the motives behind our actions, especially those that generate shame, and to be open to self-criticism when it is warranted. As Jung noted, the only obstacle to seeing our own shadow is often a lack of honesty with ourselves. With a little self-criticism, we can begin to discern the shadow. Another key aspect of Jung's method was helping patients find meaning in their lives, because he believed that when someone is trapped in deep depression or overwhelmed by anxiety, healing requires discovering a meaningful role to play in the divine drama of life. To understand what Jung meant, we can recall a meeting he had with a Pueblo tribal chief in the early 20th century. Jung was discussing the tribe's traditions when the chief made the following comment: "Yes, we are a small tribe, and these Americans want to interfere with our religion. But they shouldn't, because we are the children of the Father, the Son." He pointed to the sun. "That is our Father. We must help him rise every day over the horizon and move across the sky, and we don't do it just for ourselves. We do it for America. We do it for the whole world." Jung understood that to many modern people this might sound delusional or archaic, but as he observed, these people did not suffer the way we do. They were not plagued by neurosis, anxiety disorders, or depression. They didn't rely on pills, nor were they consumed by addictions. On the contrary, the tribe was composed of highly functional individuals who saw themselves as playing a sacred role in life's divine unfolding. Their lives were rich in meaning and purpose. As Jung wrote, these people have no problem. They have their daily life, their symbolic life. They wake up each morning with a sense of divine responsibility as children of the Son, the Father, and their duty is to help the Father rise over the horizon, not only for themselves, but for the entire world. You should see these people. They possess a natural and complete dignity. Jung contrasted this lifestyle with that of a Western woman he once knew. As he observed, she was a compulsive traveler, always rushing from one place to another, always searching but never truly able to find what she sought. I was stunned by her eyes. the eyes of a hunted animal, surrounded, constantly searching. And I saw that she was possessed. And why was she possessed? Because she did not live a life of meaning. Her existence was grotesquely banal and empty. If she were to die today, nothing would change, nothing would be lost, because she was nothing. This compulsive searching infects many people in the modern West. Some hop from one destiny to another. Others chase romantic partners. Still, others are compulsive seekers of money, prestige, fame, or social recognition. But regardless of the outer form, the inner motivation is always the same. The seeker is running from the banality of their own existence, trying to fill the emptiness that comes from living without meaning. As Jung explained, this emptiness cannot be filled with material things or external experiences. What fills it is the awareness that one's life makes a difference. As he wrote of the Pueblo woman, if she could say, "I am a daughter of the moon. Each night I must help the moon, my mother, rise over the horizon." That would be something else. And so she would live. Her life would have meaning, not only for its own continuity, but for all of humanity. This gives peace when people feel they are actors in the divine drama. It is the only true meaning of human life. All else is banal and secondary, even a career or reproduction, compared to that one thing which gives our life significance. Jung wasn't suggesting that we must all adopt Pueblo mythology. His point was that many people suffer because their lives lack meaning, and it is the task of anyone who wants to overcome anxiety or depression to discover that meaning. In other words, we must find a way to justify our existence, so that we too, like the Pueblo, can believe that our life matters. For some, this will come through religion. For others, through contributing to values like justice, freedom, or community. Still others may find it through creative work. But in the modern Western world, where no dominant mythology remains, it is up to us, and only us, to discover how we can play a meaningful role in the divine drama of life. For the few who succeed in this task, a fulfilling life will define their future. For many others, years or decades of meaningless suffering and compulsive searching will be their fate. I care only that each individual fulfills what is within him. That is the true problem. This is the real problem of the modern puer aeternus, the eternal youth, who now struggles each day so that his father may rise over the horizon.